Oh, wow.
Okay, now that we're all in love with watercolors, let's do a simple watercolor landscape. So, let's talk about the parts of a landscape. We're going to have a background, a foreground, and a middle ground on this one. And in order to set that up, we're going to start with a pencil. The first thing that I'm drawing in is a mountain line in the background. So this line's going to be kind of rough. It's going to create the peaks of my mountains. And it's going to be about 1/4 of the way down from the bottom of the paper. Now about halfway down my paper, I'm going to draw a line that's going to be my horizon line, and it's going to set up my middle ground. So it's just below my mountains. And then to create the middle ground and the foreground, I'm going to split the bottom half of my paper from the horizon line. So now that front right section is going to be my foreground. The middle left section is my middle ground. And then the background in the sky that I'm about to paint is going to be my background. So to paint the sky, we're going to do a wet on wet. So go ahead, if you haven't done so already, wet your paintbrush and start painting your sky with just water. Remember to pause, rewind, fast forward as you're following along with these videos, okay guys? Okay, so let's add some blue now. And this is a nice, bright, beautiful day, so we want our blue to be kind of translucent. We want it to be nice and bright and light. So we're putting a good amount of water on our brush. The first thing I'm going to do is go around the outline of my mountains. And then once I've followed that line, I'll start to spread that blue through the sky. Now, while I'm spreading the blue throughout the sky, I'm looking for natural gaps in the blue where there's more water, because those are actually going to become my clouds. I'm not going to add white to paint clouds. I'm just going to use water. So you can kind of start to see them forming now. When you're doing a wet on wet, sometimes you want to think about, instead of painting, pushing. You're just pushing the paint around inside the water. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to push the paint out of spaces where I want it to be more white as clouds, and push it to other areas where I want it to be more blue like the sky. And I also want to make sure that I'm creating definition between my sky and my mountains. So what I'm doing here now is I'm actually lifting paint back up out of the water to create more of a separation between my clouds and the blue in the sky. It's okay to have some blue in your clouds. Clouds are transparent, so you see the sky through them. But you still want to have much less blue in your clouds than you have in your sky. So I'm using my paintbrush now almost like a mop. I'm putting water on it. I'm using that water and brush to pick up paint. I'm wiping the paint off my brush onto the paper towel, and then I'm going back and collecting some more. And then I'm continuing to disperse and spread out that blue as I go. Now let's get to work on our mountains. So we're going to do another wash, another wet on wet wash for our mountains, just to set a light gray base color. You want to be more conservative this time about putting the water down, meaning you don't want to use quite as much. Go lighter, lighter is better, and be careful when you're working next to the sky. And here's the reason why. You already have water down and the paint's still wet in the sky. So if you put a bunch of water down next to it and the two areas touch and meet, what's going to happen? Right, the paint's going to run into your mountains where you're putting down the water. So just very, very slowly and carefully when you are painting near the line where the mountains meet the sky, and just a little bit lighter with the water as you're putting it down. Now I know you're thinking, she just said gray, we don't have gray in our trays, but you do have black, and we can make that black more transparent by adding more water, so it's going to give it the look of a gray. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to put water in our brush, and we're going to put just a little bit of black on our brush, and then we're going to take that black and we're going to spread it all throughout the mountains. So that color is spreading and thinning out, becoming more translucent and creating more of a gray look. And we're just putting down one coat for now. We're going to come back later when that paint is dry, and we're going to add more detail, more definition, more texture to our mountains. Right now we just want to get a background color. So now continuing again with the wet on wet technique, we're going to work on our mid-ground. So one of the ways that we create perspective or a 3D look on flat paper is with the use of color. Colors in the front, in the area that would be closer to the viewer's eye, are going to be brighter, they're going to be darker, and you're going to have more detail. Colors further in the back are going to be lighter, more diluted and faded, and less detailed. So just like our mountains, we're adding more water and less paint to our brush to put down a more diluted color, and you can do whatever colors you want for this, okay? And I should have said that for the mountains too. Even though mountains are usually gray, if you want your mountains to be purple or pink or red, I'm okay with that. Just make sure that you use more diluted color. So with this mid-ground or middle ground, we're adding more diluted color. I decided to go more traditional. I've got some green in there, some yellow, but I got a lot of water too. I can always come back and add more later. Remember, with watercolors, just as with most things in art, it's easier to add more than it is to take away once you've got it on there. So start less and then build. Moving on to the foreground now. This is the part closest to the viewer's eye. So we're going to go darker with the color here, and then once the paint starts to dry, we're going to come back and we're really going to add some details here. That darker color is also going to help us differentiate between the foreground and the midground or the middle ground. So now I'm using my darker green. I think next I'll probably come in with some orange, but I really want these colors to stand out. Again, pick your own colors, make your own landscape, but follow the same principles. Darker in the front, lighter in the back. Darker in the foreground, lighter in the middle ground. So the reason that we move around watercolor painting so much is to give different areas of the paper time to dry. So while we let our middle ground and foreground dry a little, we're going to come back to our mountains, which should be drier now. Notice I switched my brush and I picked up a flat brush so that I could add more texture to my mountains to make them look more rough. I'm not painting the whole thing in. I'm just picking and choosing different spots. Maybe where the sun is reflecting off the mountains, I'm leaving it lighter. And then I'm also building in some darker values. Just make it more interesting. Make it look more realistic, give it more detail. Go ahead and give your mountains details now. And remember, again, if you need to pause this video, rewind anything, you can watch it as many times as you want. That's what's great about these demo videos. And if you're still not quite getting it, just call me over and ask. I love, love, love doing demos in class also. Okay, moving on from my mountains now, I'm going to go ahead and switch brushes again, this time to a detail brush. Remember earlier how I said the closer the section of the image that you're making is to the viewer's eyesight, the more detail it would have. So we're going to go ahead and add some details now to our foreground. Maybe just some little grass, maybe you want to put some little teeny tiny flowers in. We don't want anything to be too big. Remember, we've got to keep it all relative to one another. So you shouldn't have a flower that's bigger than your mountain, even though it is going to be somewhat closer in size than if they were right next to each other, because it's all the way at the bottom of your paper or the front of the viewer's line of sight. So we'll continue adding details into our foreground. However, notice that your paper is not truly 100% completely dry yet. Even though we gave it time to dry, moving from part to part, we still have a little bit of dampness to our paper, but that's okay because it gives us one effect. What we're going to do after we're done putting these details in is we're going to go and we're going to either wait till next class, we're going to put our paper up to dry completely, or go hit it up with a blow dryer.